Yeah, mine no. I was by myself.
How come you don't reply to your father?
I was at practice. I just rushed in. I'm still my practice stuff.
Yesterday I called her. She doesn't pick up the phone. I'm at Brian's. Oh, so you can't talk to your father?
Call the meeting to order, please. A little after 7. For the record, witnessing Mr. Lindley and Mrs. Iron Martino. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would request my good friend Mr. Rice to lead us in the pledge. There's one right there. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is citizens' comments, and I see a few people here, so just in case a lot of people want to talk, I'm going to limit citizens' comments to 2 minutes for a total of 20 minutes if we need it. So, do we have any citizens' comments?
There being none from the community, high school will take an opportunity. As all of you have come to know, we have a student spotlight of the month, and I'm very proud to welcome Ms. Mary Steglitz and her parents, and I will let our student liaisons tell us how wonderful Mary is and how and why she was nominated. So join us in this proud moment. You do this thing.
Each month, Turtle Lot Memorial High School Student Spotlight Program recognizes a student who has demonstrated outstanding achievement, character, leadership, attitude, and/or contributions to the school and community. January's Student Spotlight honoree is junior Mary Steglitz. Mary was nominated by 3 juniors: Stephanie Kolozajak, Jolie Wilbur, Holiday Glow. In Mary's nomination, Jolie states, "Mary is always on top of things, and when she is given something to do, it's done efficiently. She balances her friends, 3 sports, NHS, and class leadership while being so nice to others." Regarding her motivation, Mary states, "When I wake up in the morning, I already have a to-do list going in my head. I like to focus on getting things done and staying organized. I am always looking to the future and setting my sights on my goals, both short and long term." Mary actively participates in the TMHS community. In school, Mary is a part of the student leadership team, a member of the National Honor Society, and the junior class secretary. Of her plans for the future, Mary states, "Ever since I was a little girl, I've always wanted to be a nurse. I am focused on getting into a good school and passing the RN exam. My ultimate goal is to be an emergency room nurse for a city hospital." Outside of school, Mary plays 3 sports year-round and volunteers at Day Kimball Hospital. When asked about her volunteer work, Mary states, "This environment allows me to interact with people in many different ways. Giving back, volunteering, and being involved are all standards that I have grown up with, and I take pride in what I do." Mary's personal message to the school and community is, "I cannot stress enough how important it is to be involved. The worst thing you can do is get on the bus at the end of the day and go home. If you are not involved, you have less of a connection to your community." Lastly, Mary states, "We spend a lot of time at our school, and what you put into your experience and what you get out of it."
Thank you very much.
Mary, you have to make a speech now.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
In the future, could we add that as number 4?
Yeah, let's no, that's right, because people want to come in and be able to leave. So we'll just, we're going to move it to educational update A, but the first one, okay?
All right.
Because this is really time for citizens' comments, so.
Okay,
And
all
that's
right.
fine, that's fine, that's cool. So, any other citizens' comments before we move on? Another one?
But this one is only quarterly.
Okay.
So we do have another program which recognizes the outstanding contributions that our faculty members make. Again, this is a system where our students make the nominations. So with that, I'd like to bring to the Board of Education Mr. Tony Pearl.
Okay. At this time, the promotion committee would like to announce the staff recognition for the second quarter of 2017-2018 school year. Each quarter, the student body has the opportunity to nominate any staff member who they believe is a shining star in the TMHS community. The second quarter staff recognition goes to Mr. Pearl. Mr. Pearl was nominated by Jonathan Bickelhop, Kendra Innes, and Brandon Cutler. Freshman Brandon Cutler wrote, "Mr. Pearl is always my favorite class because he always tells jokes. He is also very good at teaching math." Mr. Pearl,
Secondary.
Like the jokes.
Mr. Pearl is always able to put a smile on any student's face, typically through sarcasm, and he is someone that all students can count on. Sophomore Jonathan B. states, "Mr. Pearl is one of the best teachers I've ever had. He puts a lot of work into his classes and makes everything interesting and fun." So, Mr. Pearl, on behalf of the student body, we would like to thank you for being an amazing teacher and person you are. Your personality and dedication to your students is greatly appreciated. Congratulations on being the second quarter staff recognition for the 2017-2018 school year.
Congratulations, and thank you for all you do.
Recommend we move that.
Yeah.
We'll move that down.
Well, no, AA, because that's only gonna be quarterly, so you can combine the two.
Any other citizens' comments? Good?
Done.
You're done? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Committee updates? Committee updates?
Yes, we just had a subcommittee meeting and we're going to be speaking about the board video highlights on the Facebook page and also, getting out some trifold flyers to the public, to different offices in the area.
Thing on alumni?
Yeah, tomorrow night we have the monthly TMHS Alumni Association meeting, 6 o'clock in this room, if anyone would like to come and hear what's going on with the alumni and some of the progress and future things that we're working on. Other than that, it's been a pretty busy winter for the Alumni Association. Obviously, we're planning the next career day functions as well as homecoming weekend and looking at ways that we can get our enrollment up and get engagement with our alumni and recently graduated alumni.
Anybody questions, comments about committees, subcommittees? Okay, moving on to educational update. We're going to talk about our Alliance Plan and ECS funding, and I'd like to welcome our State Senator May Flexer and our State Rep Danny Rivero. Thank you for coming, because this is all new to us, and it might be new to some of it. Might be new for you, and maybe you can help us through this new thing.
And one of the concerns that we had when we went out to the Department of Ed, once we were identified as an Alliance school district, was that the funding source for this year came from the Department of Ed budget. However, the state hadn't voted on allocating those funds. So our concern is that we are going to be designated as an Alliance district for 5 years. However, the uncertainty of that funding, it was Thompson and I believe Groton that were kind of in this abyss, and we don't know where that lays. And so they encouraged us to reach out, and the board to reach out to our state representatives to find out what's going to happen to us. So that's more or less why we invited you here today.
Not to put you on the spot, but what's going to happen? But just so you know what the State Board of Ed said to us, we're designated, but we don't know where your funding is coming from. So maybe you can help us through that maze.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me just say that Danny and I have had the pleasure of spending a lot of time in your schools, and you have great staff here and wonderful students, and it's always a pleasure to be in Thompson, and we're glad to help be proponents of the great education that you're providing here in this community. We have researched The issue with the Alliance District funding for Thompson, now that you are newly designated as an Alliance District, and we've talked with the State Department of Education and we've talked with the co-chairs of the Education Committee in the legislature to try to make sure that the discrepancy that's in place this year won't be there in the future. So coming into next year, we'll get things cleaned up so you won't have any, our hope is to get things cleaned up so you won't have any reason to be concerned moving forward. And to be candid with you, overall, having the Alliance designation in these really uncertain times is a good thing. Many communities around us, other communities that I represent, faced huge cuts this year because they're not Alliance districts. No, I know that you're not, but I just want to emphasize that for everyone, that this designation really protects a community that has a lot of people that struggle to get by, and there are other towns, you know, near us that didn't have that protection from Governor Malloy's cuts, unfortunately.
You know, I happen to represent the 3 Alliance districts in this corner, Kilney, Putnam, and Thompson. And it was nice in one sense. I know you might think of it as a downturn in one sense, but the fact that you didn't get cut 5% like everybody else got cut. Because if you weren't an Alliance district, you would have cut automatically 5%. And on top of that, you wouldn't have got the 400,000, and hopefully May and I both are working on this, that 400,000 is gonna come in for the next 4 years. They don't know how they missed those 2 towns. They got 33 towns in it, 31 of them got the extra money, but you really mean it? I said, yes. So that's one part of it. I looked up, and in fact, I was just looking at it again. All the towns just about got cut from the governor, whether that's gonna go through or not. And I looked, and Thompson can say this much: it only looks like you're gonna get cut, which is, any penny is too much, but it's $13,393. The town right below you was $1,050,000. So, and I don't even know what the town is below you, but it's, in one sense, this end of the state, our 3 towns up here, we might look at it as a detriment to be an Alliance district, but as far as funding right now, it looks like you're a lot better off to be Alliance district.
Right. And that's the way we're looking at it. We're trying to look at the positive of this whole thing. And we were concerned when we were designated the Alliance district, because we just didn't know, you know, what everything entailed. And everybody can raise the bar a little bit more, and we can always do better. So being designated and getting the extra funding certainly doesn't hurt us at all. And we're going to embrace that and do the best we can with that money. We just, you know, if it's a 5-year thing, we just want to make sure that the money's there for 5 years, as much as anybody can predict.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's so close from being Alliance district and not being Alliance district. So you might think it's, you say, oh, geez, we're in the Alliance district. I wouldn't say it's something you should be upset over, really. Yeah. Because being in one and not being in one is very, very close. And the difference of 5% of your ECS, which in your case, you know, is what, $8 million, they're talking 5%, plus the extra 400,000. So I personally think it's a godsend. Some people say, oh, I don't want to be in the Alliance district. And I look at what does it take to be an Alliance district, and it's, like I say, it's so close that if I was sitting in your seat, I'd say, oh, thank the good Lord, we're gonna get an extra. Everything goes out, we might have an extra $1 million. Yeah. They're gonna make you do certain things, I realize that and so forth, but at least you have the dollars to do it with.
And like I said, we're gonna embrace it, we're gonna make the most of it. So we're not looking at it as any kind of a punishment or any shame at all. We'll do good things with the money.
I think our concern was that we're putting some really robust plans in place, but if it's not sustained over the 5 years, then we're worried how that would unravel. And so we were told that we needed to really lobby with our state reps to make sure that you were aware that we were kind of left off the list.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. I can't say 2, 3, 4 years from now exactly what's going to happen with Alliance districts. I mean, this was a priority that's been in place for the last couple of years, but if the makeup of the legislature changes, and obviously the person in the governor's office is going to change no matter what next year. So we will have to be vigilant to make sure that the importance of Alliance districts is emphasized. And looking at some of the other towns that have had this designation for a long time, the way they've been able to make some improvements, make investments, frankly, like in Killingley, for example, where they've been able to make investments with resources they wouldn't have had if it weren't for the Alliance district monies. And I would just say that also I think we're gonna have to be vigilant if the support for the Alliance designation maintains and the money stays there. I think we're also gonna have to be vigilant that that just because you get the money for 5 years doesn't mean that the factors that have caused you to need this extra help will have gone away. Right. And I get concerned about that 3-year transition period when the 5 years is over. It's similar to what Danny and I have dealt with the priority school district money in the past with Putnam, where, you know, things get better because you have these extra resources, and then suddenly the state yanks it away, and then you just go back to where you started from, and the resources go away, and your numbers go down again, and then you get redesignated. I think, you know, we've got to be strong advocates that this money needs to stay in place, and that any transition that happens when the 5 years is over doesn't mean that the resources just go away, because again, nothing's going to change that dramatically in this community that you're suddenly going to be able to support those programs solely on your own.
Right. When we were first designated, and they told us that we had to reach out. Well, I thought that was kind of unfair for us and kind of unfair for you, because you know they're the ones that made the decision, and because of they didn't put the money into Thompson's slot. But that's fine. But it seems that you have a very good working knowledge of this. So thank you for coming to help us understand it. And we understand in a couple of years we don't know what the makeup is going to be of the legislature. Could all change, and priorities may be different. But as long as we're designated, and we know we're not going to get in and out of this smoothly in a couple of years, so as long as the funding that's due to us comes to us, we will make the most of it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And again, before we leave it, you know, you were 33rd, you look at the 34th, 35th, 36th, 37th, look at that test scores, and it's just a fraction difference. So you could say, thankfully, we are the 33rd one, and we're gonna get that extra dollar.
Right, but even if we were up much higher, we could, like I said before, we can always raise the bar and try to get better all the time. So I'm not looking at this as though we've done something bad or we're failing. We're just raising the bar a little bit. If they wanna give us money to help us raise the bar, that's fine with us. Yeah, we're happy
That's
with
great.
that.
You guys are approaching it exactly the right way, and we're happy to come anytime.
Yes.
We only got Danny, unfortunately, for a few more months, so we make him come back all the time.
It's a pleasure to come, you know, really invite us, and we'll be here, because that's, we both enjoy it. And May has a little more pulling heart than I have, but I went there right after the superintendent called me. I went up the next day, and he said, "Oh, Senator Flexer just left here." So, you know, she had already been there, so it was, you're getting well covered, and that's what our job is, and we wanna do it. We wanna make sure that our towns we represent get the most we can get from.
Well, we certainly appreciate what you've done.
And I can't emphasize enough, I just think the world of the school system. You guys do a great job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions, comments? So we can let our reps leave, but
You sure? That's it?
we good?
Well, thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having
We
us.
appreciate
Yeah, thank you
it
for
very
having
much.
And you're welcome to stay, but you know, it's a.
Believe it or not, we just came from a meeting up here.
Yeah, we did. We just moved down the street and one more.
Yeah, one more to go.
All right.
All
Thank you very much.
Good
Have a
luck.
great night.
And if you need us, you know how to get a hold of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, superintendent's report.
So, our enrollment for this month has remained steady. We have had some fluctuations. We have lost a couple of students at the middle school. We went one student down, and then we went up a couple of students in Mary Fisher, but at the end of it all, we remain at 1,009 students, and holding steady there. I know that I just got an email today with all of the ads that need to go in the paper for kindergarten registration. So that will be coming out, and those ads will be placed in the paper very shortly. And then we'll see. One of the things that we've been talking about in budget is that currently we have 5 kindergarten classrooms at 20 students in each classroom. And next year, we will need 5 first-grade classrooms, but we're going to really be paying attention to the kindergarten numbers coming in. But really, we don't have a solid handle on those numbers until the end of the summer. when we get in all of those registrations. But we will really be watching those and monitoring those numbers. But we do know that next year we will need another first grade classroom. So based on the numbers that we currently have. So that's our enrollment update.
Okay. CAVE membership?
So, I know Kathleen had mentioned it during the last budget update about the CAVE membership, and I'm gonna turn it to Kathleen. I did put some correspondence that we recently received from CAVE, which talks about the board and the superintendent relationship, and then all the studies that they've done behind that. But Kathleen, I don't know if you want to talk about the membership.
I will a little, but then I'm gonna turn it over to you. But
Okay.
I think it's a significant resource that we're not taking full advantage of. And, apparently, it was dropped years ago before I got on the board. And because of the high cost of the, membership. But when Melinda did check into that, and it is now for a school of our size, and Melinda, you can correct me, it's around $4,400. And then if we pay an extra $350, we get a DVD at the end of, or during the school year, we'll get a DVD of all the changes in the legislative laws relating to the schools, which we are currently paying Ann Littlefield to do for us. So it may allow us to cut down on our legal even more as we update our own policies in our policy using this DVD resource that they will supply every single year to us, correct, for $350. That's less than 1 hour of Ann. So, I mean, I wouldn't say 100% it would cut down on Ann's time, but it would allow us to revise our own policies to some extent, or to look to see where they needed to be revised, and then send them to her for a final review or something, rather than to have her juniors do all the work. We could do some of the work ourselves in our policy committee.
And they explain that some of those legislative changes are really just a template that we put our Thompson information in, so they can provide the template for us to do, put that information in. So it can be a savings, and they will prorate if we wanted to stop membership now. They will prorate that amount for this current school year.
I don't know if all of you, I get emails constantly from them, and they do offer quite a few useful workshops that there still is a cost to them even if you're a member, but a non-member cost is much more money. So as being a member, we would save money there if you wanted to attend some of these workshops, and I being a retired person and some of us being self-employed, and retired, could attend some of these workshops and then bring that knowledge back to the board.
On the workshops, is that a flat fee? So in other words, we pay the money to be a member of CAVE, but if we went to the workshops, do they charge us individually, or can we go as a board?
No, individually, usually it's $100.
Okay.
So it depends on the workshop. Like, we're going to sign us up again for that free, there's a Alliance Group workshop, it's free.
Yeah, the other thing with the workshops, I guess we would have to watch the number of board members that go there, because obviously if we're, well,
You thinking quorum?
I'm just thinking a quorum,
I don't know.
does that apply to
I
that?
don't think it would apply.
The chances of 5 of us going to one is.
Right.
And I don't think it applies
No,
in
but
that
It only
case.
becomes an issue if we start talking about our stuff.
Okay.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're just
I don't think it applies, but in any way, that's true. We would have to get approval. I think we would set up some kind of procedure. All right, I wanna go to this CAVE workshop.
Right.
And say Linda and I wanna attend one, or Sean and Linda, or somebody, three people wanna go to one. Well, maybe we don't have the budget for that, but, because the board actually has no budget. The
Right,
board,
it'd have to come out of fees and dues for the district or something.
right, it would have to be a
So
district
there-
expense, cause the board has no budget, we have no budget for us to do anything.
Right.
Anybody have questions, comments about this? It's on action items for later, we'll vote on it, but, good? Okay, we're good for now. Moving on to, we have an oil spill expense. Mr. Bryce is the chairman of the building committee who is taking charge of this oil spill. And Mr. Birch is a member of the committee. And they can explain this whole thing to you. Bill?
So,
Why don't you-
with the oil, you want me to come?
I don't know if you wanna get in front of the camera.
So, we are with the oil spill from 2014. There was a referendum to cover the expenses pending litigation to the tune of, I believe, $650,000. The short of it is that money is gone. It's all been expended. Between the work that we've done, the attorneys, there is none left. The balance is, I believe, at $4,000, John? That we're kind of holding in reserve. But currently, at this point, we have legal fees that are past due. We have a carbon treating system to treat groundwater that we run all the time. We have no more carbon filters to put in place. We have mandated from DEP ongoing groundwater testing every quarter. We still have our environmental analysis that is working for us every day. He was here today. And now we are at the point where DEP is looking for more. They want to know if there is more recoverable oil. We don't believe there is. We believe it's unpracticable to get it out, whatever might be left down there. But in order to do that, we need to do more testing to come to that conclusion. So we are at now a point where the carbon filters we're thinking for the next 6 months is $3,300. The groundwater testing is another $5,000. The environmental expert is probably going to be another $5,000. And the last quote we got for testing was $91,000 to do these additional wells that have to be drilled inside the school. We have to drill test wells in the hallways to prove that there is such a small amount of oil under the school that we can't get it out. The last test was not, the last quote we got was $91,000. I was here with the driller today and the folks from CME. They think that price might be down a little bit, but that's the last number we got. In addition to that, we also just received notice of violation in December for the other 2 tanks because they aged out. We knew they were going to age out. Builder committee was formed. We went out to bid. We chose a architect and an engineer to do the design work, which is what you need to do before you can go to the state for reimbursement. But the state didn't pass a budget, the town didn't pass a budget, and so as a result, we couldn't initiate that contract until after the first of the year. So the tanks aged out. We are now under notice of violation on that respect. So we have our engineer has now done the legwork to prepare a response. We got the response in on time, which was good. And we have got a verbal commitment from DEP that they will give us an extension until the end of the year. But let me reiterate, that's verbal. I do not have anything in writing that says that. They say the conditions of that is tightness testing on the 2 tanks every 3 months. which we estimate is probably gonna be $3,000 each time. I put out requests for prices. I had one contractor come look at it today. He said he would have a price to me by tomorrow, so we might have a better number by the building committee meeting on Wednesday. You're coming, right?
I forgot about it.
Okay. Two more contractors are gonna come look, give us some more prices, so we have a better number by Wednesday. And, then beyond that, we have to have a design in place, we have to go to the state, all those things that go along with any building project. So, I mean, the bottom line is, at this point, we have things that we have to do, we have to continue to do, and we don't have any money to do it.
So, Mr. Rice, how are we going to do this, all of this with no money?
We should have kept our state rep and our state senator here from.
I didn't think of that.
How come he doesn't have to get up? Come on,
Wow.
Just one thing before I forget is that you mentioned the end of the year, that notice of violation, when it first came up, it was that turn off the oil spigot right away from the 2 tanks, and there's
Correct.
no more fuel coming into this building to heat it or hot water. But through Ty and Bond, they did work out a condition, as Bill just mentioned, the tightness tested, but that extension was only till July 1st, not the end of the year, as he stated. It's the end of the school year.
The end of the school year.
I just
That's
wanna
Bill's
reiterate, we don't have that much time, like till December 31st, it's July 1st, that they're gonna tell us to turn that spigot off.
And then I might just add, beyond that, we need to have some new tanks in place by the time the heat has to come on, which
Of course.
we're talking the 1st of November.
So,
If I may,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, the thing, I had sent this, a memo to the first selectman, requesting additional funding, and I have not gotten a written response as to what his plans are, so.
did you get a verbal response?
Yeah, the verbal response was, have the school pay for it.
Oh, well, no.
All right, well, that's what we're here to discuss.
So, couple of questions. Are there any state funds or grants covering this? Because I'm sure we're not the only school that has old tanks in the ground.
So
And I'm
there
sure
will
other-
be, there will be, I believe it's 68.2% reimbursement from the state for the actual replacement of the tanks.
Of new tanks.
Of the new tanks, correct. And that'll cover removing the old tanks,
Yep.
putting in the new tanks. So yeah, there will be money coming back for that.
Okay, so.
But you have to remember, we're talking about, there are really two different things going on here.
Correct.
There's the first oil spill back there, okay? And then there's that new, not an oil spill, but those tanks that have to come out the other direction. Those are two very separate things.
Right.
All these costs are overlapping.
So I guess the second part of where I was heading with this is these costs that are coming up, so 3,300 for 6 months, the filters, all this other stuff, and then the 91,000. Is there a way that we can remove the tanks and this other part goes away, rather than spending all of this and still being at square one?
Tom, it's two
So
different things.
Tom,
You're-
okay, so the short answer to your question, Tom, is that, I look at this and we would have to submit it to the state, but none of this is reimbursable.
Okay,
These are costs that we have to be borne
all right. That-
by the
okay.
town, one way or the
Okay,
other.
I know it's two
With the
different things, but I just,
91,000,
no,
where do
Bill,
we stand on this lawsuit?
Well, let's back up.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, so we.
It says 2.8
so
here.
We had, this happened, 3 years ago?
Mhm.
We're to the point now where Mr. Birch and some representative of the town went to court last week?
Last Thursday.
Last Thursday.
Mhm.
The part that I don't understand is we did nothing, well, I don't, this isn't the part I don't understand. We did nothing wrong. The company that serviced the tanks, I believe, caused this. Now, we're forced to settle for less than it's cost the town, because that's what's gonna happen. So Mr. Birch went to court with someone from the town to hammer out a settlement. Well, we have some big numbers here that we need to continue paying until this is all done. And even after this is done, if they find, we have to do quarterly testing, if they find one bad test, we're gonna have to do another year of it. So they need 4 clean tests. And we might have a heavy rain, we don't know. If there's any oil, it's underneath the school and we can't get at it. We believe it's very little, but we don't know, and that's what the state wants to know, how much is there.
And that, I might say that the whole purpose of these other wells that we have to drill, these other tests we have to do, this maybe $91,000, is because we can't opt to settle. The opposition can't opt to settle because nobody knows how far this is going out until we can figure out what may or may not be under the floor.
Okay, so no settlement has been.
No.
Okay.
No, and there was a scheduled court date for 6 weeks from now. That date has been taken off the docket.
Okay.
Because the judge we met with last week said, you know, until we get these answers as to what may or may not still be under the building, nobody can do anything. So the question was, and it was to our environmental expert, how quickly can you get this done? And his answer was within a couple of months. But my guess is they're not gonna do it for free.
Well, no.
So that brings us back to our issue about paying. Now, the town went out for referendum for a certain amount of money. Can the Board of Finance, out of some kind of surplus or contingency, give us more, being for the same issue? Or do we have to go out to referendum again? If we, you know, if it was $500, $600, I'm sure we could cover the cost.
Right,
And
right.
we're talking thousands of dollars, and we certainly don't have that kind of money hanging around.
What's the referendum number?
50,000. 50, so like 110 right now.
Right, so anything over 50, that's what we're.
Right, but I don't know if you had that discussion with our select people.
The selectmen asked to be on the agenda Thursday night, the Board of Finance, and that'll be discussed to see, we're gonna propose these numbers and then see what the Board of Finance wants to do.
Will you be there?
Yes.
Okay. It's just, it's concerning that if the town says they're not paying, we certainly don't have the ability to pay. And I just don't know where we go next.
They shut the school down and we make the news.
I think the initial
Shame on the town.
The initial testing that was required by the notice of violation was something like $30,000, so I thought that we could find that, but now with the judges, the additional monies, the possibility of finding where the oil is, it could be $90,000, so that kind of changes the.
Well, the notice of violation was the 2 tanks, which are in the capital budget to replace, the 2 tanks that we're replacing.
The only thing in the budget, I thought, is.
Not this year, the town's capital budget, haven't they been putting money aside, or is that
No,
for the
they have
town
not.
garage?
That might be for the garage, but this is
They
totally.
haven't put anything aside for us, to my knowledge.
Okay, and I probably am wrong, it was for the town garage tanks that had to be replaced. And I remember you standing up every year for the past 4 years, reminding the town that these tanks were going to happen.
Well, thank you for that.
Well, I do remember
Well,
that,
he did,
Bill.
and there was a point where, like Mr. Rice said, they were gonna shut off the oil. But I think through Bill's
Yes.
investigation, they found at the time that they were certified to put in the ground were towards the end of the year. So thank you for doing that.
So as I keep saying, there are 2 different things going on here.
Right.
And this deal from DEP to let us keep the tanks in operation until the end of the school year is not carved in stone, because I have nothing in writing, it's only verbal. But one of the things that's key to that is this testing of the tanks. And as I said, in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty short money. And the alternate to that is if they give us some kind of deal with a stipulation and say, okay, you can keep these tanks in service until June 30th, but they gotta be tested and all that, and we say no, because we don't have the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. If we say no, the possibility is $25,000 per day per violation, which is 2. So it could be $50,000 a day, which would go back at least to December 21st, and maybe they could take it all the way back until the date that the tanks aged out. I really don't know that.
All right,
So they got teeth.
that's, you know, I think we can scrounge $3,000 for a test.
But it's gonna be much more than $3,000, that's the problem.
No, I meant for the testing of the 2 tanks. He's saying 3,000 to the tanks that are in the ground now, not the leaky one. This is the first number
We
one.
don't have, let's get that on camera, we do not
There is
have
nothing,
a leaking
there's
tank.
nothing leaking anywhere.
Well, not leaking anymore, I'm sorry, the old tank, the underground tanks that are there in place, that we,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Those, the aged out tanks.
yeah, which will age out at the end of this year.
No, they've already aged out.
Now, these, according to when we put them in, it's.
No,
this year.
actually, Bill, I gotta correct you, it was last summer that they aged out.
I thought you found the paperwork that said.
They thought it was the summer before, it was last summer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, as of December 21st, we could have been fined $50,000 a day, but we're not being,
We're
but they
not.
want us to test these tanks, and that would cost approximately
$3,000 to $5,000.
$3,000 to $5,000, is what I'm hearing.
And we have to do it twice.
No, I believe that's for both tests.
Yeah, but 3 month interval.
3 months apart.
Right,
So
and as I said, I'll have a
So-
better number
so-
tomorrow,
All right,
Mhm.
well, let's
so
talk.
let's
Alright,
wait
so
until we
let's-
have a real number, but
Okay.
Bill? Is it the state DEP or the federal DEP?
it's the state.
So at what point do we seek some assistance from 2 people that were just here?
Well, we certainly can lay it out and.
I mean, I understand oil is a little different than sewer, but, you know, Thompson Hill has had a letter sitting with the DEEP for what, 15 years
15
now?
years, and no
about
one's hooked up.
having to do their sewer, you know?
That's where I'm going with
I
this.
mean,
It seems like we
there's
might.
gotta be some flexibility.
Right, and it seems like we might need a little more backbone from our state, representative and state senator to, look,
I mean,
we're trying to fix this, but
part of this was caused by the state not passing a budget.
exactly,
And so at some point, the state has to take a little responsibility. I know they don't like to hear that, but
that's where I'm going.
that's on camera
I
too.
think if we can show.
And that was
If we
part
can
of
show,
the argument.
if we can show that the tanks are tight, they'll cut us some slack, I believe. So, we'll concentrate on that to begin with.
I wanna get back to this, settlement thing. Do we-
That's
I know
nothing.
that's
We don't
not
have anything
us,
to do with that.
but it's people that will be talking to the people. Where does that come from? They're responsible, they're paying. As a taxpayer, I wanna know where that comes from, so who do
I'll
I
go with
talk
that
to?
answer.
Who do I talk to find out?
Talk to the first selectman.
First selectman or the town's attorney?
No, talk to the first selectman.
Yeah.
All right. Well, 'cause that's ridiculous. I mean, they caused the problem,
I feel the same way.
so.
So, talk to the first selectman, and I encourage everybody in the room to talk to the first selectman
If you're a
and ask
taxpayer
him
in this
why.
town.
If you're a taxpayer.
And this
in
is
town.
definitely going to be on the agenda for, Thursday night?
The Board of Finance?
Yeah.
Mr. Boslake said he put it on the agenda. I don't think.
We can do it, we could do it under educational update if we needed
Yeah,
to.
right.
Well, tell me, who actually filed the lawsuit? The town or the school?
The town, I believe it's filed on behalf of the town and the Board of Education.
Right, but
The town owns all the property, so it's the town.
I understand that, but I'm just questioning why I'm talking to the first selectman, who it sounds like is accepting a settlement, and then saying that the Board of Ed has to pay for something.
Well,
Again,
nobody's actually accepted a settlement yet.
Well, it
Nobody
sounds
has
like we're going
accepted
down that
the-
road, and the same person doing that is saying,
Well, no, Sean, I think it's because this has to be done immediately, and the settlement is somewhere down the road, we're not getting paid.
I understand that.
We don't have the money.
But sooner or later,
Somebody's
somebody
gotta-
has to pay for all this.
Mr. Rice, you had a question or comment?
No, it's just that the selectman is the one that's gonna be able to say, yes, we'll accept that settlement.
Right.
Because he was asked to be in court in the event that both parties agreed to some solution, and that didn't happen.
Actually, it's the board, so it would be the whole board that would have to approve that.
Yes, of course.
When's the next selectmen's meeting?
I don't think so, but
No.
that's, I'm not sure, but we'll talk about that after. So, does
Okay.
anybody have questions for Mr. Rice or Mr. Birch?
Well, I guess what's your advisement? It sounds like you're proposing that we move at least, as you said, short money to 3,000, which buys us more time, correct?
Well, I would suggest that we ask the Board of Finance for it,
For 3,000.
but, well, for this entire amount, because it all has to be done. But I would say if they don't give it to us, that we as a district at least go forward with this tank testing so that we don't get in any more trouble with DEP.
But we also need the money for the filters.
We do.
So we're probably looking at 3,300 plus the 5,000 plus the second 5,000 and then the 3,000 for the tank testing. So 10, 13, 30, 16,300. If I did my math right, without the 91,000. Does that sound right?
We'll bring it up to the Board of Finance and ask their advice on Thursday. I mean,
Okay.
that's all we can do.
But that,
I agree with
right,
Mr.
but it's
Wachowski.
everything but the 91,000 gets us to the next stage, it sounds like.
They'll be made aware of it. They'll be made aware
Yeah.
of everything that's going on. And we'll, this is a town issue. It's not a school issue. It's not a selectmen. This is a whole town thing, so we gotta figure out how to do this
Right.
together.
Did somebody make a schedule of the costs? Like you
I
just
just
verbally
did.
told us breakdown?
Danielle's got one here she can forward to you.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't mean to me, but for the Board of Finance
Oh,
and,
yeah.
it would be okay if I got one, but it would be easier for them to understand rather than just rattling numbers off.
Sean, you had some.
What would the time frame be as far, now we're talking about the tank replacement, okay? So we have an RFP almost,
No.
when,
We are not.
what's our
so-
time frame
so-
on
so
that?
So the timeframe goes like this, and in order to get these tanks done in the timeframe we need to, then we kinda have to move on this.
Mhm.
So before we can even apply for our state reimbursement, we have to have a few things. One of them is on the agenda tonight, which is the approval of the ed specs. We have to have a contract in place with the architect and engineer. We have to have cost estimates. And we have to have, and this is gonna be the tough one, we have to have a town referendum, complete with the votes, approving the 32% of the cost that the town has to pay. Once those things are in place, we can file the forms with the state. Once they approve it, we could, because we're under notice of violation, we could forego the bid process, use a contractor that's on the state bid list, get this done. But the time frame we have to look at is, if we have to take those tanks out of service on June 30th, we could put some temporary tanks in the boiler room to run the hot water, which we had to do in the elementary school 7 years ago, whatever it was. That would get us hot water, but by November 1st, we really have to have tanks in place, operational, to put the heat on.
So
So
what,
the cost estimates are coming from the architect slash
From the
engineer,
engineer.
correct?
Yep.
That's who's giving us their cost estimates. Do we have a contract? Doesn't the building committee have a contract with an engineer?
We select.
Tentative, hopefully it'll be signed by Thursday or Friday of this
Okay,
week.
so.
They've been
we'll-
chosen.
We'll have, and their cost estimate should be pretty quick.
Yeah, they can, they feel that this is a the engineer feels that this is a doable timeline to
Right.
have tanks in
Sounds
place and run them by November
The
1st.
biggest thing is getting a town vote. What kind of numbers are we talking about, ballpark? Do you have any idea yet?
We were, to replace this one out here, I believe the total cost ended up being like $165,000
For one.
for one,
How long ago?
2015, 2 years ago.
So say 180, 360 maybe?
Yeah, maybe a little more complicated because there's more internal work.
How much it was spending on engineering?
160, well, there's 100, no.
Okay, thank
No,
you.
you need to back
You know
up.
where I'm
There's
going with that.
106 But there's $166,000 for engineering, but it is for replacement of oil tanks.
Yeah.
Over 100,000 square feet of new roof,
Okay,
and an
all right.
alternative energy project. It's
Okay,
not just,
thank you.
it's not just for the tanks.
So, if and when we do remove these other two tanks, whoever removes them, if for some reason there's a leak that's caused by the company removing these tanks, are we off?
They own it.
They own it.
That's the purpose of doing the tank testing. That's the purpose of we test them now, and they're tight and they're solid.
But if they're damaged during the tank testing, do they
They're
own
gonna
it?
be empty when they move them.
So, yes.
Doesn't matter. I mean, there's gonna be some residual somewhere in there,
Well, that's what they do, yeah.
unless they burn it off.
Well, no, but that's what they do, the way they, I know.
I call it stupid, but you know what? If they're
Are
gonna
we gonna-
remove them
oh.
and something happens, they need to own that responsibility.
So moving forward, when we remove the two tanks, are you thinking we're gonna put back one tank or two tanks?
Oh, we need to. There's not enough capacity, one tank.
Okay.
And particularly if we go with an above-ground tank, which would be my personal recommendation, is never to put anything in the ground again.
I would insist on that
Yeah,
personally.
really.
but-
The biggest one we can get is a 12,000 like we got out here.
Okay.
I mean, we're currently, we've got 25,000, so if we put in two, we'd still be 1,000 gallons under capacity, and, you know, the old Turtle Lot building is very, very good on fuel.
How often do they come and fill up?
That, the old Turtle Lot building is very good. I'm gonna say we might use 14,000 gallons a year. The one at the high school, the 15,000 gallon at the high school, they're here all the time.
So if we put in one big tank, the biggest we could get, they'd just come more often?
They'd come a lot more often.
Okay, all right, so it's an option.
It would
may
be,
not-
it could
may
be an
not
option.
a good option,
Might be
but it's
one
an
we could
option.
look at,
All
yep.
right. So that's where we are with the tanks right now, people.
The above ground tanks, do they have any kind of, is there any kind of like catch underneath them?
Well, so
Bladder
there's
or-
different types. The tank we put out here, the Convolt tank, it's the best of the best. It's a double walled tank encased in concrete. I forget what the warranty is on them. The warranty is, I think, maybe 30 years, but they have never, ever had one to fail yet, way past their lifetime.
And they're not regulated like underground tanks,
Right.
so it's. I
There
don't
are,
know- I don't
there
know
are,
what-
there are much less expensive versions. I mean, there are steel tanks inside of another steel,
Right.
you know, tank that is much less expensive.
But as we're finding.
Stupid thought, but is it just cheaper to have a trailer truck pull in here and feed out of the trailer truck and then have another trailer truck come in rather than doing these?
I don't believe that's legal in the warranty.
Just checking.
All right, so.
That may be an option if we had
I
to
was gonna
short
say-
term.
If they're here constantly, you might as well just have them on a roof.
It might be an option if we have to, by November, have some oil, that might be the way to go, but.
All right, so there's a building committee meeting tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, I'm sorry, and the Board of Finance on Thursday. So we should have answers that we could email you by the end of the week, kind of which direction we're heading here. Anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Rice or Mr. Birch? Thank you for coming. Yes?
Just to move this forward, if a suggestion would be in the event that the Board of Finance doesn't provide us any money, could the Board of Education give us the monies to do that type testing?
I guess,
Thanks.
give us, you'll know tomorrow, and we'll certainly know by tomorrow also. We're not gonna not do something, we'll figure out a way, I imagine, at least for the testing, for the tight tech. I'm not saying yes, but it depends what the money comes in at.
We'd have to have a special meeting, right, in order to have a vote, at least to get that.
Well, we're gonna meet again next week, we put it on the budget meeting.
Yeah, but I thought they needed an
We'll
answer.
We'll figure it
No,
out.
no, Tom, it's not gonna be that fast. We don't need to
Okay.
do this by the end of the week.
All right.
No, I don't know. We'd have to make some budget transfers, I'm sure, if we had the money, and we'll figure something.
I wouldn't advise doing this tank tightness testing until we have something in writing from the state.
Right.
And if by chance, the state doesn't give us a written opinion until April 1st, well, then we only have to do it once.
There you go.
So
So
if
we're not
that's the
gonna rush.
case, right, but if that's the case, then we're only down to 13,300. Because the tightening test was another 3,000, brought us to the 16,300. So we might only be looking, yeah, so we might only be looking for 13,300.
So we'll see what the estimates come in at, and then we'll wait for word from the state, and then we'll take it from there.
It may be an occasion where if the state drags their feet, it's in our favor.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Thank you for coming. Don't go, don't go.
Bill, can I make a recommendation?
Sure.
That we move the student liaisons up on this right now. I know that there's a major project due for some of them tomorrow. And I can see beads of sweat coming off a few of their foreheads because of this project.
So what's these next two things, the educational specifications and the security grant?
And that goes with the this goes with the application for the reimbursement for the grant for the underground tanks. We just need to have this educational specification approved, that we're gonna replace the $10,000 or $15,000 gallon underground
All right,
storage tank.
let's finish this first, okay? So our educational specifications,
For the
that
grant
it?
application.
For the grant application?
Correct.
So, we need a motion to approve this?
Well, it's in action, so we'll just talk about it in action.
Oh, it is, okay.
And then the same thing with the security
security
grants,
grants there
so we
too.
can just talk about them in action.
We can do that, okay.
Right? Because when we make a motion, we gotta discuss them anyway, so.
Okay. So we're gonna move the student,
Just switch
the
those.
student reports in front of the administrative reports. So, Jordan, Emily, how are you? Good evening.
Yeah. Okay. So first we have this Friday is now going to be an early release day for the students. And February 19th it will be no school, but the 20th it's going to make up for one of our snow days, so we're coming in for a full day. February 23rd for the high school students, our study course sheets need to be returned for like our next year courses. And February 25th, the TMHS Music will be holding an all-you-can-eat breakfast at the American Legion in Thompson from 7:30 to 10:30 a.m. Tickets are $8 a person and will be sold at the door for any TMS Music student. So come meet.
Very well, thank you.
Yes.
I have tickets. Not with me. You know where to find me, as always. Our high school pops concert is not far behind that. It's on the 28th. So if you're into hard rock, that is our theme. I'd say it's more kind of a classic rock that we're doing, but I won't get into that. But we're doing just a whole lot of interesting stuff. We're doing some Led Zeppelin, some Imagine Dragons, which are more modern. And we're doing a project right now where we're kind of making our own arrangements of hard rock stuff. So I'm not exactly sure what will be on, like what will be shown there, because it's kind of like a competition to see who can come up with the best. But yeah, it's a surprise. If you want to see that, come on out. Our snow date for that, because we've been having a whole lot of snow, is on March 2nd. Progress reports go home on March 1st, and TMHS parent-teacher conferences are the same day. I guess you can call after we return from the long winter weekend to make appointments and have your child's schedule handy. I believe NHS will be at that. Our spring coaches meeting at 6 p.m. is on March 5th. On March 7th, our high school spring sports mandatory player parent-player meeting is at 7 p.m. And on March 9th, there is a restored snow day students attend. It's a day 2. And on March 9th, we're having Midnight Madness. It's magic themed, so there's going to be a lot of fun stuff happening. And I believe there will be an escape room. I want to sign up for that, but I don't want to get stuck, so wish me luck. Yeah. And I think that is it. This is not on there, but esports have been going on for a while, so that's fun. I'm in it, so.
What?
Esports. Yeah, video games, competitively.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So we're having fun. I guess we're gonna get Overwatch, which is one game, trying to get on there. And right now we are currently playing League of Legends, in case anybody was curious. But I don't know, that wasn't up there, but I thought it was interesting. It's the first year that we're doing it. And people actually compete in college to do that.
Cool.
And for League or like Worlds, like it's a pretty big competition. Like teams are battling it out right now. Like I'm into it. So yeah, I don't know if anybody's interested in that. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for the ladies?
Just 2 things. Emily, do you want to just speak for a second on your virtual
course.
class?
Oh yeah, I decided to take a VHS course this semester, and it's about sports, and I recommend like all high school students do it. I actually love it. It's better than any of my other courses I take actually at the school. Yeah.
Well, maybe not that part, but go ahead.
Well, just because I'm interested in sports, so it really I feel like it's succeeding in it, so.
And you're taking the course, and there's people all around the country, right? That you're.
Well, most of them are like about an hour or 2 away from me, but actually my teacher teaches at Griswold High School.
Really?
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty interesting how, I know we talked about it, but it's nice to see how it's actually in progress. So.
I
How's
like
the
it.
pacing?
It's okay. I started a little late, but I caught up, and I like it.
She was a little upset because she started one of these online, and she did all the homework over a weekend, and then ended up.
And then I switched.
And
And
then
then
she
had
ended
to do
up
all
switching.
week ones that day too, over a snow day.
What had happened is she had a first choice and was put on a
Yeah.
wait list. So because she's such an engaged and motivated young lady, she signed up for a second one as a backup and did all the requirements for that second one. When, of course, Martha Keegan worked some great magic for us and was able to get her into her first choice. But I'd like to say that Wednesday snow day, she and I spent quite a bit of time emailing back and forth because she was just so eager to take advantage of that day in order to get caught back up. And that's a perfect profile of a student who is self-motivated, interested, and just wants to dive into her education. So kudos to you, nicely done. Thank you.
And then the second thing is, Jordan, I love Led Zeppelin. I don't know what songs you're singing, but if you want a guest guitarist in the background, doesn't have to come out to play it live.
Yeah.
You tell me what songs you're doing, let me know ahead of time, I know what
Hey, I'll
guitarist
let
I
you
can
know.
talk to.
I'll give you a little teaser. Stairway to Heaven. We're letting it happen.
Of course you picked that.
I'm actually surprised you didn't guess.
I thought you wanted Whole Lotta Love or,
What is it,
Immigrant
Dance?
Song or something.
Yeah, they
Some
probably,
really
that's
hard
the,
rock.
probably the only one they know that
Oh,
that's Zeppelin.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't
We'll
speak for
talk.
everyone saying that, but
We'll talk.
yeah, I mean, I was
Classic
counting on
rock,
it being a little bit harder, but
Just
not
Alice in
everyone.
Chains,
Yeah,
we'll
that's
talk.
when I guess that's not
We'll talk
appropriate.
outside of this.
You're too old to be in a high school.
Trying to
Yeah.
trying to get our student liaison like first place here.
I'm sure that's what your daughter really wants.
Yeah, right.
Usually she's like,
And
"That's my
besides,
dad."
probably the mandatory testing.
Anybody have questions for our students?
Oh, there was one thing
Yes.
that was forgotten. ASVAB testing is happening on the 13th. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
That's it? Questions? Apparently your father wants you to go home and do some
Oh,
homework.
And do homework. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies.
I'm gonna be
Thank you,
back.
Thank you.
Thank you for moving them.
Okay, so let's do our administrative reports. Ms. Beltram, you want to start us off?
Sure. Just a couple of quick things. First of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. Rossetti and Mr. Clear. I'm sure Mr. Scott will agree. They did a wonderful job on Friday. They had the talent show, and they had 30 acts lined up. And we saw, I don't know, just a great display of dancing, singing, some acts that even brought in their families, dance troupes that they've been with. it was just.
The comedies.
Oh, the comedy, it was a great flow. I liked that they had a lot of, more polish than I've seen in other shows. As a musician, I guess I'm picky, but, and they gave bows and they acknowledged the crowd. It was a little bit more polished all around. And, it takes a lot to put that together, and I think there was a sold out, it looked, pretty packed, so it was close to being sold out. So nice job for those guys. I want to thank my own staff for a couple of things. One, we had a great, successful math night, and with the pirate theme, so that was a lot of fun. And the whole school had different spots where they set up and had the opportunity to play a variety of math games from pre-K all the way to our 4th grade. And parents could just go in and out all the rooms. For me, it does a lot of things. One, it brings parents to the school. Two, of course, they're playing math games and enjoying math, and kind of breaking down that old, some of the old stereotype, oh, math is too hard, or it's written only for this group and not for that. So everybody's having fun. It's a great night out for parents. It's free, it's at the school, they're engaged, they get to know their teachers, everybody's, enjoying the night. So that was a great night for our staff, and there was a whole committee putting that together. They did a great job. And also, I want to thank our teachers for, and Mr. Poland, for getting our NWEA testing complete for grades 2 through 4. We had 1st grade just to try it out and get used to this idea before we get to their group in the spring. But 2 through 4, we're looking at all of their data, and it's helping us really refine where we're going forward for the summer program, just, our interventions and so forth. So it really is giving us great data to work with. So I want to thank all our teachers for that. Kathy Aloyan brought in Linda Colangelo from the state, and we noticed early on that flu and other colds were hitting the area. So the hand washing is of value to all of us, and she's very entertaining, and she and Carol Rossetti actually know each other and perform together and so forth. So she's has that spirit in her to not just do a kind of a flat demonstration. It's pretty entertaining, and she relates to the kids, and hopefully we can keep it in check as much as possible for the flu season and keep our attendance as high as we can. And I'm just going to sneak in a fourth that I really want to thank the Lions Club, in this forum, to just say thank you for donations of dictionaries and thesauruses. They brought dictionaries to each and every 3rd grade student and thesaurus to every 4th grade. And just their response, which is, candid from 3rd graders, they said, they've now moved to 4th grade, and Linda, that was their provost, and Bob LaChance came out, and so they said, do you know where your dictionary is from 3rd grade? And I'm like, yeah. They were, yeah, we use it all the time. It's not just used as a doorstop or something. So they were pleasantly surprised. They're still using them, and they wrote a great bunch of thank yous that went on to the club, and so it was nice to get that feedback from the kids, and to pass that on to the Lions that their money is well spent. So that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question.
Sure.
400 parents and family members showed up for math night.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get them there?
Wow.
No, I mean,
I don't know if I want to give out these secrets.
Are these, is it mostly parents, or is it mostly children? I mean, all I'm thinking is that's 400 votes. That's, I love the involvement. How do we keep them engaged? How did you reach 400 family members?
It has grown, and a theme helps, because all of a sudden it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And
but was it just notifications? Like, was it just
it was flyers.
That's
it was the kids telling them.
Could it be that you were dressed up like a pirate?
Sure. There you go. You gotta have fun. It's gotta be something that's gonna be fun. If you sell it as, but it was fun. And, I will credit Terry Caffell. She's retired now, Tom Caffell's wife, and I went to her and I said, give me a gem that's a surefire hit for a parent night. And she says, you gotta do math night, or you can use it, you could do ELA or math. And so, we decided, let's do math, because that's always like, scary for so many people. And, the fact that they can drop in any time from 4 to 6, and I really didn't think 4 to 6, so hitting the right time, 4 to 6, before the sports starts, that's number 2. Get it out multimedia through kids, and just Diane built this ship in the middle of the lobby, 10 days to go, 4 days to go, 3 days to go. We had little promotions within the school. You put it out on, I don't know, you just gotta hit all the media aspects of it, and it's got to appear to be fun. If it's not fun, then why should people come and sit and get blah, blah, blah? So they're playing math games, they're intrigued by all of this, and the kids have played the games. The kids know the games. They go home and they say, Mom and Dad, you gotta see this game. So they sell it to Mom and Dad to come with them, and then they're sharing it. So you have to kind of work all the parts that.
I think it's amazing and great that you got them in there. And if you keep getting them in, those are the people that will go out and support the schools and support our budgets. So I think that's.
All of that.
That, just keep bringing them in.
Well, I will tell you, years ago when I heard, that hill up on the, that school up on the hill. And I thought that was sad to me, that they thought of us, that they couldn't get to us. And so to get the doors open, to get people to come in for a talent show, for anything that we're doing, and making it fun and attractive, and come up, and they got to see the new school. A lot of alumni have never been up to the school. Now their kids are in the school, so they're getting to see the new school, where their money is going, how they're paying for things, and that they've heard of maybe but haven't seen. Now they're walking through the school, they're in the media center, they're in 5-10 different rooms. So it's important for them to share the school.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
I want to piggyback on what Mrs. Beltram said about the variety show. Great showcase of student talent. And thank you to Mr. Leclerc and Ms. Rossetti. I want to acknowledge our Geography B. We had our Geography Bay at the end of January. Our champion was Anthony Vukovic. That name probably sounds familiar because he was our champion last year. So he took the testing, I'm not sure, last week, how he did yet. And our runner-up was Jonathan Ferraro. So, and I'll tell you, some of the geography questions were pretty intense. They were difficult. So kudos to them. I want to acknowledge our basketball team. So both of our basketball teams, girls and boys, made it to the QVJC championship game. Unfortunately, they both lost to Brooklyn, but it was, what a ride, a journey. It was awesome. It truly was. They played very well, a lot of heart. So very proud of them. And I'd like to acknowledge our students who are in the boat building program. So this past weekend we had the boat show, and the students got to showcase what they've been working on with Mr. Marciano and Mr. Joyce. And Mr. Joyce actually attended all weekend, so thank you to Mr. Joyce. But they had spectators. They were showing the spectators how to work on the boat. Little kids were asking questions. It was just really nice to see. It was a very, very positive experience. So kudos to all of them. So
thank you. Mrs. Baker.
I'd like to follow up with what Mr. Scott was just saying about the boat building show. I was able to make it as well, and it was such a joy to see our high school young men as mentors to the middle school students. It was really giving them a nice place to shine. And for Mr. Joyce and his wife, who spent the weekend in Hartford, his never-ending, selfless dedication, I'm just in awe and forever indebted.
so the boat building was definitely a success. And he's so excited because he made so many different networks and connections, and he mentioned it up here at our program of studies this evening. And again, made another connection. So it just has so much potential. So thank you for bringing this into us, and it definitely is flourishing. I just have two things in addition to what the liaisons had already presented. One, the League of Women Voters will be joining us on Wednesday during our long period, where we will be personally inviting all of our students who will be 18 by the next national election in November, so that we can give them the opportunity to be registered to vote. We do this purposefully at this time of the year so that they can be part of, if they are 18, for the budget season, and helping them exercise that very important right that they have. Also, too, this is an invitation to all of you. Midnight Madness takes a huge community to pull off. You are all invited to donate your evening, your whole night, an hour, or maybe an extra cornhole game. Whatever you can do, we will definitely take your volunteerism or any of your donations. It's a huge success. Mrs. Tenike, with the first year that she put it on 2 years ago, she just had everything planned out to a T. And for those students who wanted to be active all night long, there were definite opportunities for them to just go, go, go. But so please, we would like your help if you're able to, or if you're interested. And that's on March 9th. You can come serve breakfast with us.
It is fun.
Did you just
I've been to a couple of them, but I just.
We had senior night also for both boys and girls basketball this past week. We'd be remiss if we didn't thank our MC for both evenings. Tom did a great job announcing. It gets everybody very excited. We also, I believe both nights had students perform the national anthem as opposed to the recording. In fact, I think it was on Tuesday, that the recording wasn't working, and Matthew Grauer just stepped up and grabbed the mic and just did it for everybody. So I wanted to make sure we acknowledged Matt just stepping up for that. And then he did a duet with Becky Torres on the national anthem. It's just kudos to some of the work that's done by our music department as well. Joining forces with senior night and with the athletics. It was a great night, and of course, I'd be remiss also if I didn't acknowledge for the first time in how many years, Tom, we had a student, one of our students,
we had
dunk on another on the other team. It was a very I need to reference, little me, had to hold about 8 kids off of the court with excitement as this occurred. So
it was good to see the
did not get trampled in the process.
Yeah, it was nice to see the support not only from the school but townspeople, alumni, whoever was there. It was nice to see people in the stands, and as a former player, it's always good to see a lot of people in there. But you're exactly right. I was trying to figure out, I don't know if it's been 10 years, I think, since someone had a legitimate one-hand tomahawk slam, and Josh Dodd put it down with ease, and it was awesome to watch.
And appreciation needs to be expressed for the Class Act Committee that is through ECC, and we have a subcommittee, very strong subcommittee here, for organizing that as a blackout night.
Yeah. One other thing on that also, this is the first time that I've heard of it in a number of years, where we had 2 players from our athletics that were up for ECC Athlete of the Week. Lauren Ramos won it 2 weeks ago as a basketball player of the week, and Amanda Boguslavsky was this past week. And I don't know the results, I'm sorry. Did she?
I don't know the results.
Yeah, we'll find out. But if that's the case, that means Turtelot had 2 ECC Players of the Week in the same month, basically.
Okay, moving along. Mr. Sugarman, you have anything for us?
Sure, just a couple quick things. The Title IV grant, like I said, has been approved. We just modified it a little bit because we joined some of it with the Alliance District plan as well. So rather than just a couple staff members to get mindfulness trained, we're going to get 6 staff members mindfulness trained across the district. That'll start this spring. The specific training will start in the fall, and we'll be able to start the actual classes with the kids in the fall, winter time. Medicaid is still on track to double from previous year's reimbursements. And then we've also begun having students lead their own PPT meetings as well. It's an initiative that was in the strategic plan from elementary age students to high school age students. So there was a kid in the elementary school who came and made a PowerPoint with his special ed teacher, came, presented his own PowerPoint for about 15 minutes, and shared his PowerPoint and his thoughts, and then excuses himself from the meeting. So we're starting that from elementary level, and even in pre-K, it'll be kids being filmed and videoed, actually participating in class, and demonstrating that, because the whole purpose of the IEP is the individual, and we never want to lose that when we're at a PBT meeting having that conversation. As promised, I know I pushed it off a couple times from other things. The other thing that I included in the packet is just a mid-year report from the Special Ed Strategic Plan that was approved last spring. So we're kind of like a year into it now. It is a 3-year plan, so I just want to emphasize that. It does take multiple years to kind of change some systems, change some culture around some things. I'm not going to go through it all, by no means, but I did want to let you all know, just to highlight, just so you know, where it says under metrics, there's a second thing there, current progress. So I kind of added some data of where we currently stand towards some of those metrics, and then the color tabs are kind of the implementation steps and where we currently stand with implementation, with different colors in there too as well. So just so you have that as you kind of look through it as you're at your leisure. And really the primary focus has been a lot of systems, culture changes, guidebooks, some procedures in place. We will start to make a shift in this spring going into next school year of really looking at strong metrics around student achievement metrics and growth. And are these kids, are these things that we've put in place, are they having the academic impact that we believe they can be? So that's going to be the shift that will start to happen from this spring going into next school year.
Thank you. Mrs. Spinelli, you got anything?
Boys and girls basketball teams both qualified for state tournament, and they're both in the ECC tournament. The girls play Thursday at Wyndham in the first round of the ECC. They won't find their bid for the state until next Friday. The boys have 2 more home games this week. Then they'll be playing in the ECC, and they won't find their draw for the state tournament for another couple of weeks. First time that boys made it in 4 years. That's
Thank
it.
you. Mr. Birch, you have anything else? Or have you all talked out?
I have talked out, and it's mostly about oil, and the school security grant is on the excuse me, on the agenda for discussion. But the only other thing I would like to say is expanding on what Mrs. Beltram said in regards to the flu and the stomach bugs that have been going around. We took some extra measures. I took some of my summer help, who is, don't laugh, Tom, who is available in the evenings. So I'm trying to put an extra 3 people on every day just to disinfect, touch surfaces. And you know what, as these young people work for me all summer, they've done a great job, and I don't think any of them are sick yet, so that's good. But more importantly, I like to say that the food service people have stepped up, and they are doing the kitchens and the cafeterias every single day, and the bus drivers are disinfecting the buses every afternoon after the final runs. So there's been a lot of effort on a lot of folks to try to keep us all in school.
Thank you. All right, anybody have questions for any of our administrators? Okay, let's move on to action items. We have a meeting of January 8th. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second from Linda. Any corrections, omissions, deletions, anything we need here? We good? All those in favor of accepting the minutes the way they are, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Presents?
Okay.
Non-present.
Special meeting, January 16th. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Discussion, anything we need to fix on this? All those in favor of accepting these minutes the way they are, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And lastly, meeting of January 29th. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Linda.
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. Anything here we need to fix?
March 30th should be half day, not full. That's correct.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so anything else? All in favor of accepting these minutes with that one little correction, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. Something we do every year, we don't like to, but the non-tenured teachers. We have 25 non-tenured teachers, and for budget purposes, I think we all know we lay off the teachers and hopefully call them back once we have a budget in place. And we have to do this by law at this time. So, do I have a motion to proceed with the layoffs?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Sean. Can I have a second? Thank you, Donna. Any discussion?
Can we amend the motion to say that we do this with regrets?
It's his
It's
motion,
procedural.
so-
It's procedural.
Of course, we all regret
It's
it.
something we do, and
But sure.
Just saying?
no, it's something we don't wanna do,
Yep.
but, you know, until our schools are funded in a different way, I don't see a way out of this.
Right.
And we can't, and we can't run without teachers. And there's only 25, there's always been more and more.
Right.
So we're getting less and less every year. Pretty soon we won't have to do it, they'll all be
Mr.
tenured.
Brissett, can you restate your motion?
I did.
We're good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, CAVE membership, we talked about it a little bit, we know it's approximately $5,000 all in. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion well, it would be prorated for this year. Let's make it, for this year, it would be 2,500 probably, give or, no, whatever it is. Yeah, a little less, but, because we would get the DVD, and, so I make a motion that we join CAVE, we become a member of CAVE as soon as we can.
Immediately?
Yeah, immediately. And so we would be prorated for this year, and also to add the $5,000 as I did the last budget session, add that to our dues and fees for, probably with a little extra, at least for Melinda's, you've got travel in there, and with joining CAVE, would you have enough travel? Okay, so, I mean, I would do it on a volunteer basis and just write it off on our taxes if we can, you know, if I could fall within that category. No.
That's a big long motion. It sounds more,
Sorry.
it sounds more like a movement.
I get, you know,
You
I
can
just.
second it just like that.
Yeah.
No,
You
I
have to
make a
repeat it
motion
word
that
for
we
word.
join CAVE immediately. I'll second
Okay, so
it.
we have a second for that. Further discussion.
Motions, we have movements.
Do we have money that we can do this immediately?
I don't think we've used all of our dues and fees. I know I certainly haven't. So we'll look in the budget and see where we can take that money from.
I mean, it's a great idea, and Kate does an awful lot of work on our behalf, and it's time we pay our fair share, as long as we can pay it.
And keep in back of my mind, we may have to cough up $3,000 or $4,000.
To your original point, though, this could also help us get ahead of the game, looking for legal
It would,
legal
I think it would,
assistance.
in some senses, maybe it would help reduce our legal fees for our policies.
Right, we're going in prepared rather than looking for fact-finding from our legal team.
We know it's not a lot of money this year, Mr. Breen, do you think we can find this money somewhere?
We do have sufficient budget for it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We voted already.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
No, we didn't vote.
Oh, no, we didn't vote on it.
Oh, okay. I was-
We made our motions.
No,
The
I-
motion was
I-
kinda long, so you probably thought we voted.
No, I
I
made a
fell
smaller
asleep there for a minute. Okay, so we know we can pay for it. We have a
Yeah.
motion and a second. All those in favor of joining Cape, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody want to abstain? Thank you. Oil spilling expense approval. I suggest we table this one until after the Board of Finance meeting. We'll have an idea from Mr. Birch of what the testing is gonna cost, where there is a building committee meeting on Wednesday that will discuss this, and we're gonna talk to the Board of Finance on Thursday.
And this can be added to next week's budget meeting anyway, right? If we needed to.
Right. Okay, so that's table for now. Our educational specifications approval?
That's the tanks.
That's, yeah,
Tanks,
that's tanks
those
still,
with the
isn't
tanks.
Is that-
Well,
is
yeah,
that you?
that's just this.
Yeah.
Could be.
Is that you?
It could be.
All right.
The ed spec is just a very simple requirement of the process to get the school building grant. So if we built a whole big building, we would have to put up an ed spec of what the educational specification would be for the project. When you just need an oil tank, you still have to submit an ed spec. So you can read the ed spec, simply says the oil tanks have aged out and we need to replace them. But we need to have board approval of this ed spec so we can submit it with the application.
And this covers everything that we need to state in it with all the.
That is all that it needs to state. And that is, we took that directly from the last one we submitted 2 years ago for the last oil tank.
What's the amount of the grant?
So could I have,
Well,
this has nothing to do with the grant yet.
We don't have to reference the notice number or any of
You
that?
just have to approve the ed spec as written.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the ed spec as written.
As written.
Second.
And a second by Don.
Now do we wanna discuss it?
Further discussion?
This is just for the new tanks though.
This is for the tanks, then we send in the paperwork. Okay? All in favor of accepting these ed specs, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anyone abstain? Good. Security grant approval.
Okay,
Is
where
that you?
That's on
I
the-
guess it is.
That's not the Bill's report.
I saw it somewhere.
I'm coming back.
Bill's report, what page is that? Jumping all over.
There it is.
Okay. So, we applied for the third round of the school security grants. As you recall, we got the first round, it went very well. The second round, we did not receive anything. We put in the third round, and the grant was in the amount of $217,025.12. So our reimbursement amount that we'll get back from the state on this is $148,814.12. And local funding would be $68,211. So the way the grant is laid out is that we can actually submit for things that we've done all the way back to 2013. So we did a lot in 2014 with the first round of grants. Since then, we didn't get the second round, but we did a couple of projects in the last couple of years that were $42,056 for additional cameras that we couldn't afford the first time, and $46,239.47 to upgrade the radio system to digital and put in the new repeaters. Those projects have already been paid for.
So you're already over your 68,000.
With good fast math. So we've already paid for those. So the things that are left to expend to fulfill this grant is $75,000 and $75,086 for new door sets for the remainder of the building that doesn't have the lockdown door sets. Penetration barriers for the glass curtain walls, the auditorium, the front of the middle school, places like that, to try to keep someone from driving a truck through the doors. $16,278.15. a new numbering system for the building inside and out. One of the biggest things of the first responders, whether they be state police or the fire department, whoever comes here, is they can't determine exactly where they are. Because of the way the building was built, the way it was numbered, we go from 100s to 200s to Ks to Es. This is a comprehensive system to redo the entire building so that it makes sense to everybody. That comes out to be $16,194.44. Interior shades, which for all the windows, these windows actually have them, but for all the interior windows, all the interior doors, so that when there is a lockdown, teachers can close the shades without having to put cardboard over the doors. $21,171.06. The bottom line is that we will need to expend $128,729.65, and we will get back $148,814.12. Of course, the only thing is that we actually have to spend that money first in order to get the reimbursement. So we need to come up with it up front.
So we need to accept this grant, so can we have a motion for purposes of discussion?
Sure. Not this year's budget, next year's budget. You put these projects in next year's budget.
We're not in discussion yet.
Oh, yeah, we are.
In a second, we have a motion and a second for purposes of discussion, to accept the grant. Now it's discussion, so, that's all right. It's okay.
Are you?
Maybe it's just C.
Okay, I do remember we were talking about the wall, the curtains.
Some of these things, yes, you're right, absolutely.
And
some
the
of
bollards or whatever we did, you're going with planters, and we can't change those to bollards because you put in.
We can.
What?
We can.
Okay.
We can change. We can't change the dollar amount we've been given, but we can change exactly what we do.
Well, we're getting an extra. We can change.
Well, that's what I was just about.
Yeah, can't we fool around with the money once we get the money, or we have to stay at 6.
The amounts, the amounts for the specific projects.
Yeah.
They're kind of, we have to stay close.
Okay, all right. So the only one that I don't remember seeing is the 75,000 now for the lockdown doors. I don't remember seeing that one in the budget.
That's been taken out.
Oh. Because it's coming in through the grant?
Well, we took it out because we didn't have it.
Well, understood,
now we've got the grant.
but yeah. So basically, I'm gonna have to lay this out because you're claiming things that we've already paid for from prior years to make up the 148. We got 20,000 extra, but you're gonna why don't you put that and buy prettier bollards?
Works. I mean that certainly is fine with me. Or I mean I think of all the things we're looking at here, that is the item that has seemed to have an awful lot of people that want to have input, and we can certainly do that.
Well, there's not much I can do about the numbering system, except for ask you, who is going to number it? Who do we have that's the expert that's going to number this building?
Currently, I'm working with the graphics firm from Putnam, and I can't think of his name off the top of.
Well, I don't mean the guy who's going to paint the number. Who is going to lay out?
They're going to lay it out.
They're going
to lay it out with our input. We had some discussion today. I've got to work with Heather in the technology department because there are issues. We're going to try to correlate it with the phone system and with their computer system so that everything lays out. But in the end, it has to make sense. It has to.
Right. Well, but will you get the emergency manager to come in and then approve it before you go? Okay. I'm done.
Probably getting tired over there, so I'll let him go first.
All right. Just, I think, in order to have the buy-in, it sounds like the state police and the fire company are the two. So, I don't know, again, I know the emergency management group, but they're not the ones that respond here. So, I think getting the buy-in of the police that come here as well as our chief of fire.
Oh, absolutely. Once we have a plan, they will all be asked for their approval before we finalize it and stop having signs manufactured.
Correct. And then the second thing is what's the, once we spend, say we spend the 128, you're gonna get the 148 back, what's the recovery time? Because will it fall into a different budget year?
Absolutely, without a doubt. If, my experience in the past with the state security grants is that they respond pretty quickly once you submit for payment.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if we could do all these things before June 30th, we'd be doing pretty good. But even at that, we wouldn't receive our reimbursement probably until August or September of next year.
Of next year?
Yeah.
So we'd actually go through two.
No, August or September of,
This summer.
of 18.
He does
Okay.
school years.
All right,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm working, or fiscal years, as the
Fiscal
case may
years.
be.
Yes, fiscal years, yes.
So we spend it
We would
now.
have to account
Yeah.
for
Right.
We spend it now, we get it back,
next
Well,
year's.
fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
Right.
2 months, 2 or 3 months turnaround on
Yeah,
it.
they turn around much quicker on the school security grants, in my experience, than they do on the construction grants. Construction
So-
grants take quite a while.
I don't think we should wait on the lettering and the numbering, because we've been told when we did our full evacuation in the fall that needed to be done. Some of our parents are actually troopers, and they've noticed that it hasn't been done, so I've asked Bill to really kind of get on that portion at least, to make sure that the building is numbered and lettered correctly.
So, I mean, just trying to get it all into one fiscal year though, could we, just
Oh, we
from,
could.
just from a budget
That's
standpoint,
right.
I
We
mean,
don't, absolutely
'cause
don't have to.
you're not gonna see invoices from everybody until,
No.
you know, June, whatever, so we could get the payment and the reimbursement all into one budget year from the sound, I mean, I would think.
Oh, yeah, you could accrue it, certainly.
Well, it sounds like
Encumber
you'd
it.
start the project in June. What's the completion time, 30, 60 days
Uh,
maybe?
These are all pretty short.
Wow.
These are all pretty short projects. It's gonna take us more time to figure out whether we want planteds, bollards, or guardrails. Than it is to
Jersey
do it.
barriers, what they
Jersey
are.
barriers.
Donna?
Let the kids
So I
think
heard,
loud.
I mean, I've been like reading up on this, I heard that there's more allocated grant money for security that has been released by the state. Are we gonna be looking into more?
I just sent that to you, we haven't had a chance to talk about it.
No, we haven't really had a chance to talk about it, but it's possible that news article may be this grant money that we're talking about that's been released.
Okay.
I don't know, Donna,
I
I
think it's
can't.
additional for the next, you know,
Yeah.
it's an ongoing thing because of, you know, what's going on in our state, so I just, you know.
I think if it's available, we certainly will apply for it.
One other question, I'm just a little confused as to why, I know we've already spent money, but that money's spent, it was spent on things that we needed to do. Why are we only spending 128 if we're gonna get 148 back?
Because we're getting reimbursement on those other two projects.
I know, but is there anything else that we really need to do?
You're thinking spend 148, because we're gonna get 148 back?
I'm just,
Well,
yeah,
we
it's-
can only change the projects just so much, cause, you know, I wrote the grant for,
So it's specific to that and that's it, so we're kinda in
Yeah.
that situation. I get it, we're getting paid back for stuff we already did, but
yeah.
it was stuff we needed, we did it, it's paid for.
Okay.
and So, okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of accepting the grant, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Birch, for all your work on that. Correspondence, I don't have it. Oops, wait a minute, whoa. I'm sorry, I forgot to add an item. I needed to add an item to action items, please. We have a resignation from the middle school. So could I have a motion, this is just for letter G, to put it on action items? Could I have a motion, please?
Sure.
I'll
Sean?
second.
Kathleen, thank you. This is just to move this to action items. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. Oh, so now I have a resignation here, letter G, from, I don't know if everybody has this?
No.
From Jay Hardell, 7th grade geography teacher, Thompson Middle School. saying his last day will be March 13th. He's moving on to a technical school. So, could I have a motion to accept his resignation?
What is the date of resignation?
The 13th of March.
It's given us 30 days.
I wish our senator and rep was still here. Chat about the disparity of all the money going to the state schools.
Okay, we can't do anything about that now, so can I have a motion to accept the resignation?
Yep.
Thank you, Sean. Second? Thank you, Linda. With regret, you know, this
Our
is,
dollars are paying for them.
they pay more to steal our teachers and our students.
Yep, they do.
So, so all in favor of accepting the resignation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that's done. Correspondence, I don't have any.
Oh, well, they do. No, I mean, everybody likes him.
No correspondence. Old business.
I was gonna bring up something for old business, is that the committees, are we gonna be?
I know, I forgot.
Sorry. I just bring it up as old business.
Danielle will remind
Danielle, you
me.
don't think you just elbowed him about the resignation?
Did I do that?
Elbow him about the committees.
We'll do that. I promise I'll do that this week. Citizens' comments? Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Linda. Second? Second. Jody, all in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll make the request that my seat gets moved. For some reason, I was very vocal sitting in this.
I like you.
No.